everybody, welcome back to my movie review series. Today we'll be discussing Pain and Gain. Just finished watching it. You can watch it for free on YouTube. I actually don't recommend watching it on YouTube because it is edited, and any piece of art that is edited, I'd rather just review the actual writing of the plot. So you know how we do it. Overall impressions / grade after reading the logistics about the movie as provided by Google. Once I give my grade, if you've not seen the movie, would like to, based on my recommendation or not recommendation, you want to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing the plot synopsis and any character development, along with similar movies and major themes. So, Pain and Gain is rated R. It was released in 2013. It is an action / crime movie with a runtime of 2 hours and 9 minutes. Google says it's biting, exciting, and satirical. It says, Danny Lupo, played by Mark Wahlberg, manager of the Sun Gym in the 1990s Miami, decides that there is only one way to achieve his version of the American dream: extortion. To achieve his goal, he recruits Muscleman Paul, played by Dwayne Johnson, and Adrian, played by Anthony Mackie, as accomplices. After several failed attempts, they abduct rich businessman Victor Kershaw, played by Tony Shalhoub, and convince him to sign over all his assets to them. When Kershaw makes it out alive, authorities are reluctant to believe his story. Budget of $26 million, did $86.2 at the box office, directed by Michael Bay. So what did I think about it? Like a 69% liked it on Google, nice 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb. What did I think? Again, action crime movies are extremely redundant. I thought this had an interesting tone to it. It's based on a real story. And the setting is 1994 to 1995 in Miami, Florida, United States of America. A lot of big name actors. But overall, I thought it was entertaining. Again, anything with a historical bit to it, I like. I thought it did have a different tone to it for an action movie. I mean, it is very satirical. It's very just kind of like goofy. It's got a very like lighthearted tone to it for such, pretty serious crimes. So overall, I thought it had some uniqueness in the tonality of the kind of having like a goofy background to a serious crime. So overall, I'm going to give it a solid B. I found it entertaining. I've seen it before. Didn't really remember the plot super well. So I thought it was solidly entertaining, but I would definitely recommend watching the unedited version. And the one on YouTube is edited. So if you've not seen it, would like to. Again, I used to be a big gym bro. Can't do that because I don't have access to healthcare. My back's bad. So the gym commentary was definitely, when it came out, definitely up my alley. So if you've not seen it, would like to, there will be spoiler alerts. The movie opens up and you get kind of, a flash forward scene about 95% way through the movie. You meet Daniel Lugo, again, the Mark Wahlberg character, and he's doing like crunches or sit-ups like on top of this building. And so that's in, sometime in 1995, then you have flashback to 1994. So you meet Daniel Lugo, and it opens up with a solid bit of narration. He's a big gym bro. He's a manager, or he gets a job at the Sun Gym. He's got a past where he defrauded or extorted some old people out of their investments. And the owner of the gym, John Meese, is he's like, it's not too big of a deal. And so Daniel promises to triple the attendance really in 3 months. And so he gives free memberships to strippers, as well as just attracting a bunch of new customers. So he becomes the manager of the Sun Gym. You have a minor character in Serena, and there's a lot of good-looking people in this movie. But basically, Daniel attends a popular Asian actor, and he's in a lot of things. But Ken Jeong, he's like this motivational speaker about how you can be successful. Go to a conference to rile you up to be a next best salesman. I don't know, something typical to like a Grant Cardone or a Gary Vaynerchuk type of character in the movie. And so Johnny Woo's like, don't be a don'ter, be a doer. And so Daniel Lugo gets all hyped up about becoming a somebody. And so you kind of meet Paul Doyle, again, The Rock Johnson. He gets out of prison for beating people up. His background's violent, and he goes to stay with somebody in Florida because he doesn't have any warrants, and he's able to help out around the church, and that's kind of where he starts. Pretty quickly on, the pastor tries to make a move on Paul Doyle, so he hits him and leaves the church, leaves that church or that pastor. But You also meet Adrian Doorbell, who was good friends, or at least it seemed to have a much longer past with Daniel. Again, also working at the gym, and just kind of like hyped each other up to go do something productive with their lives. And so one of Daniel's clients is Victor Kershaw. He's half Jewish, half something, half Colombian maybe. But basically Victor's characterization, he's kind of braggadocious, he's kind of arrogant, kind of an asshole. But Daniel sees what Victor has and really, really wants what Victor has. So they do some training session, and Victor tells him about his rainy day fund and his different assets that he has. He owns a Schlotzsky's Deli, which major theme, that used to be an absolute slapper. They had, I forget what I used to get there, but they had some sort of just sandwich. I don't know if it was the pastrami one like they had in the movie. They had a sandwich there that was really good. And so definitely Schlotzsky's Deli was a classic. But regardless, so now Daniel has hatched his plan, and then they recruit Paul Doyle again after he leaves the church where the priest is trying to touch him. And and so also pretty early on, Adrian Doorbell has some erectile dysfunction issues, and so he goes to get some penis shot. In Rebel Wilson, who plays Robin Peck, and so her characterization was pretty funny, I thought. But regardless, they hatch this plan that they're going to steal Victor or kidnap Victor and just make him sign over all of his assets to them. And so the first couple of times attempts to kidnap Victor, they're pretty sloppy criminals. Daniel's kind of the head dude, Paul's the real doofus kind of character, and Adrian and Daniel themselves are not too intelligent. And so after a while, they're able to kidnap Victor, I forget where, but then they take him back to, they have some warehouse where they hold him and keep him. And basically they just start, interrogating him a little bit, and then they slowly, progressively start torturing him, and Victor holds out for like 3 or some odd weeks. And so Daniel is still going to the gym to hold down his cover. They have different shifts. Paul's, super into Christianity now, so him and Victor kind of bond, and they kind of become somewhat friends. And again, Paul's a very, doofus, kind of aloof characterization. And they take turns watching him. And so after a while, Victor ends up signing over his properties, and Daniel's all excited, goes into the bank, and the banker's like, it has to be notarized. And so the gym owner, John Mace, he lost sponsorship for a bodybuilding competition he was going to host. And so Daniel's like, if you help me, John is a notary, and says like, if you notarize this, I'll definitely support your or sponsor your bodybuilding competition. And he basically just tells John Mace that his good friend Victor is out of town and on vacation, and he's just handing over his stuff to him. And so John gets into the criminality there, kind of unwillingly or unknowingly for a little bit, but now they have all of Victor's assets, and now they're going to dispose of Victor. So they try to stage a car accident where they force him to get drunk, and then they try to put a brick on the gas pedal and have him die in a car accident. He survives that. They try to burn him with gasoline. He survives that. Then they try to run him over with the car, and he survives that. And so they think they've gotten rid of Victor. He goes to the hospital, and they have all of their assets. And so they go to the hospital, try to finish the job. Victor has contacted Ed Dubois, who's a private investigator and has some connections to law enforcement, because the police officers did not believe Victor Kershaw's story. Another major theme is police officers not doing their job, as I've been defrauded out of my entire life. Classic. But regardless, Victor is able to escape the hospital and goes to stay in a motel. And so, once again, Daniel and the crew, they're hosting, neighborhood watch things in this nice neighborhood, trying to blend in. Paul gets really into cocaine, and Adrian marries Robin Peck. And so, once they know Victor is still alive, Victor calls them to say, give him our stuff back, and they call and figure out where he's at. And so once again, they find him at this motel, and Victor is able to barely escape once again. And so Daniel and Adrian also go to Ed Dubois' house, and they abort mission from there. They just see his wife and see the police officers come back. And so Now, Serena starts out dating Daniel and starts dating Paul. But Paul runs through all of his money on cocaine, and Adrian sinks all of his money into a house. And so Paul's low on money. He tries to rob an armored car. He gets his toe shot off, but a police chase, and he's able to barely escape, swimming away. And then he goes back to Daniel and Adrian, who are giving this presentation about the neighborhood watch, and Paul is all coked out and just lost his toe, and so they're all kind of freaking out there. But basically, push comes to shove is Adrian and Paul are broke, and Daniel's like, okay, then we need to do another job. At first, Daniel's like, why are you guys broke so fast? But then they basically decide they're going to rob major characters. Like you couldn't recognize them, but that's just a whoever. There's a porn dude that they run into in a club one night, and so they decide they're going to do the same thing to him. And so they meet with this big porn dude, and they say, here's this business opportunity. We're going to get you to, this big investment for you. And so the initial meeting goes well. They meet back at Adrian's house later to sign these papers. And the porn dude's like, Daniel, I'm not gonna sign you. I'm not gonna sign these things. We need to go over with the board. Blah blah blah. Look into it as a real business. So Daniel kind of loses his cool after the porn guy calls him an amateur, and he punches him and hits him, and then kind of stomping on him, and a bunch of weights fall down and crack his head. And so the porn dude dies. He's got a wife who's a porn star with big implants, and she sees what's happening, and Adrian's kind of trying to restrain her, and he injects her with horse tranquilizer, and Daniel and Paul are going to go get more supplies to dismember the bodies and get rid of the evidence. And so the chick that has the implants wakes back up. Adrian hits her with horse tranquilizer again, and it kills her. And so now, kind of getting to the resolution of the movie, they had said they're going to cook off the fingerprints of the hands, and Paul's out there cooking it like an actual cookout, just like out in the driveway saying hi to the neighbors. And Daniel and Adrian go get more supplies to dispose of the bodies. They put them in these big underground drums, just like Breaking Bad. They get rid of the drums in just some lake or the forest, the Everglades of Florida. And at this point, again, Ed Dubois has done his research and knows that these people are serious, and the chief of police kind of blows them off. And then once the porn guy and his wife go missing, they know that they're pretty much dead. And so they get a warrant, and they all swarm all of these people all at the same time: John, Daniel, Adrian, and Paul. They get Adrian at his house. His wife testifies against him. They get Daniel, then you get the initial scene where he's doing crunches or sit-ups. Daniel gets arrested, and Paul gets arrested as well. And so then you have the resolution of them doing the trial and giving the facts of the case. So basically, the way they found actual conviction took them like 14 minutes to convict Daniel and Adrian to death, and Paul to 15 years for cooperation. But they basically made the final identification by the serial numbers, because they'd cut off the hands, or at least did somewhat of a decent job of getting rid of the evidence, but they were able to identify the bodies by the serial numbers of these breast implants. And so throughout the movie, there's even a tagline about 90% through the movie where just like a little text pops up and says, "This is still a true story." So we didn't have to look into it too much, but it seemed to be going as close to the real story as they could have gone. So overall, I thought it was entertaining. Again, just a different kind of tonality to an action crime movie, which are typically very trite for me. I still like them. If there's a sequel like The Equalizer 3, I'll definitely watch stuff like that. But overall, I found it entertaining, and I definitely recommend the unedited version if you're an adult. So thank you for watching my movie review of Pain and Gain, and I will see you on the next one.